Welcome to the wild world of international trade, folks. It's a complex web of imports, exports, and enough jargon to make your head spin. But fear not, because tonight, we're diving headfirst into the belly of the beast, specifically the U.S. trade balance. We're talking surpluses, deficits, and everything in between. Think of it like your bank account, but on a much larger, more globally significant scale. When we talk about trade, it all boils down to this. A country either sells more stuff to the rest of the world than it buys, that's a surplus, the good kind, or it buys more than it sells, that's a deficit, the kind that makes economists sweat. In this essay, we'll be dissecting the U.S. trade balance, focusing solely on goods, not services. We'll be looking at the first half of 2024, examining the countries where America's rocking a surplus and those where the deficit is giving Uncle Sam a serious case of the financial blues. So buckle up, buttercups, because we're about to embark on a whirlwind tour of America's trade relationships. We'll be calling out the winners and losers, analyzing the reasons behind the numbers, and exploring the impact of these trade balances on U.S. policy and international relations. It's time to see who's playing fair in the global marketplace and who's leaving America holding the bag. Let's get to it. Let's start with a bit of good news, shall we? Because, believe it or not, amidst the sea of red ink that is the U.S. trade balance, there are a few bright spots. These are the countries where America's actually racking up a surplus, selling more goods than it buys. Think of it as America's nice list when it comes to trade. Topping the charts in the first half of 2024 is the Netherlands, with a healthy surplus of $27.1 billion. That's right, the land of windmills and tulips is apparently also a gold mine for American exports. This surplus is likely driven by refined oil, medical devices, and industrial machinery, all areas where the U.S. excels. Next up, we have Hong Kong at $11.6 billion, and the United Arab Emirates at $10 billion. The UAE's surplus is likely fueled by America's booming aerospace industry. Australia comes in hot on their heels at $9.7 billion, also likely due to aerospace sales. And rounding out the top five is the United Kingdom, with a respectable surplus of $5.8 billion. Now, you might notice a trend here. Many of these countries are either relatively small economies or have specialized industries where the U.S. holds a competitive advantage. It's like selling high-end sneakers to a niche market. You might not be moving millions of units, but you're making a tidy profit on each sale. Now, for the not-so-good news. Brace yourselves, folks, because we're about to dive into the deep end of the pool of U.S. trade deficits. This is where things get a little less rosy and a lot more, shall we say, concerning. Remember that whole buying more than you sell thing? Well, the U.S. has turned that into an art form, racking up deficits with a whole host of countries. Leading the pack, by a long shot, is China, with a jaw-dropping deficit of $127.7 billion in the first half of 2024 alone. That's not just a deficit. It's a deficit of epic proportions, a black hole of trade imbalance that could swallow a small country whole. But China's not alone in this dubious honor. Mexico comes in a distant second at $82.7 billion, followed closely by Vietnam at $56.6 billion. Germany and Ireland round out the top five, with deficits of $42.3 billion and $38.2 billion respectively. So what's going on here? Why is the U.S. hemorrhaging money to these countries? Well, a big part of it comes down to manufacturing. Many of these countries, particularly China, Mexico, and Vietnam, are major exporters of manufactured goods. Everything from electronics and appliances to clothing and toys. And guess who's buying? That's right, the US of A. Section 4, the China Syndrome, a deeper dive. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, shall we? Or should we say, the dragon in the room? Because when it comes to U.S. trade deficits, China is the undisputed heavyweight champion. Now, some might say that a $127.7 billion deficit with a single country is just a tad excessive. And by some, I mean pretty much every economist worth their salt. This massive imbalance is due to a variety of factors, including China's role as the world's factory floor, its undervalued currency, and its often protectionist trade practices. The US and China have been locked in a trade war for years, with tariffs and counter-tariffs flying back and forth like ping-pong balls in a hurricane. The situation is complex to say the least, and there's no easy solution. But one thing's for sure, this trade imbalance is having a significant impact on both economies and is a major source of tension between the two global superpowers. Section 5. The shifting sands of global trade. The global trade landscape is in a constant state of flux, shaped by geopolitical events, technological advancements, and of course, good old-fashioned economics. And the U.S. trade balance is very much a reflection of these shifting sands. The rise of China as a manufacturing powerhouse is perhaps the most significant development in recent decades. Since joining the World Trade Organization in 2001, China has flooded the global market with cheap goods, contributing to the U.S. ever-growing trade deficit. But China's not the only player in this game. Mexico has emerged as a major exporter to the U.S., thanks in part to NAFTA and its successor, the USMCA. Vietnam is another country to watch, as businesses look to diversify their supply chains away from China. These shifts in global trade have significant implications for the U.S. economy. On the one hand, they've led to lower prices for consumers as companies source goods from the cheapest possible locations. But on the other hand, they've contributed to job losses in the U.S. manufacturing sector as companies move production overseas. Section 6. Trade balances, a diplomatic balancing act. Trade balances are about more than just dollars and cents. They're also a key factor in international relations, influencing everything from diplomatic negotiations to military alliances. A large trade deficit with a particular country can be a source of tension, as we've seen with China. It can lead to accusations of unfair trade practices, currency manipulation, and even intellectual property theft. On the other hand, a trade surplus can be a sign of a strong bilateral relationship, as it suggests that both countries are benefiting from the economic exchange. The U.S. government uses a variety of tools to try to manage its trade balances, including tariffs, quotas, and trade agreements. But it's a delicate balancing act, as any action taken to reduce the deficit with one country can have unintended consequences for other trading partners. Section 7. Conclusion. Charting a course through the trade winds. Navigating the choppy waters of international trade is no easy feat. The U.S. trade balance, with its mix of surpluses and deficits, is a reflection of the complex and ever-changing dynamics of the global economy. Understanding the factors driving these trade balances is essential for policymakers as they seek to promote economic growth, protect American jobs, and maintain strong relationships with key allies. It's a high-stakes game with no easy answers, but one that will continue to shape the U.S. economy and its place in the world for years to come. So, the next time you hear someone talking about trade deficits, remember this. It's not just about numbers on a spreadsheet. It's about jobs, it's about diplomacy, and it's about America's place in the global economy.